Let's give him applause.
Can you hear me now? No. How about power? I gave you everything but power there. Everybody hear me?
Yeah, sure.
All right. My name is Tom Weaver. That's the last time you will see me in uniform of that nature. Normally, I would be in swim trunks and swim fins. So the whole purpose of my talk today is to tell you and give you an appreciation of what a SEAL goes through when they say you are SEAL qualified. What happens, how much you go through. There is an awful lot of money invested in a Navy SEAL. Let me start with the SEALs though. SEALs started way back in 42 and 43, but they were called Scouts and Raiders. Basically just swimmers doing the beaches. Then it turned into underwater demolition team toward the end of World War II, clear up through the early 80s when official SEALs took over all of the UDT. SEALs were formed on paper in 1960 by President Kennedy. President Kennedy said he wanted a Navy elite unit, and the first SEALs were created from UDT in 1964. I went through training in 1965, so I'm one of the earlier SEALs you'll find, although there's an awful lot of them out there over the years. Let's push the red button here. Scouts and Raiders, 42 to 47, then they converted into there we go. 43 up until the late 70s were all called UDT, and UDT are officially in Coronado, California, and in Little Creek, Virginia, before they were all converted over to SEALs. Okay, now go back. Size of SEALs. Everybody asks, how many SEALs are there really? There's approximately 3,000 SEALs at any one time in the U.S. Navy. They're divided primarily into three groups: operators in Coronado and staff, operators and staff in Little Creek, Virginia, and there are SEALs spread through 134 countries as we speak today. A lot of those are single individual SEALs doing military briefings and military guidance from a Navy standpoint to many countries. Most of Central and South American countries have anywhere from 1 to 2 or 3 SEALs reporting to executives either in the Navy or directly to the political governments. At any one time, there's approximately there are 9 SEAL teams, 4 in Coronado, 4 on the East Coast, and 1 which is the super secret SEAL team that effectively was assigned by the Joint Chiefs to go after Osama bin Laden. That is a SEAL team where none of the missions are publicized. And they would not have preferred to have the mission into Osama bin Laden published either, because a number of those individuals who went on didn't like the publicity that it got them, and they were effectively taken off of operational duty and put on the staff duty because they were outed by politicians. Vietnam, I'm going to skip that one. In Vietnam, SEALs were in the Delta, which is way down here at the bottom, in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, and up in Da Nang. 3 areas they primarily worked out of, 3 different environments. The Delta, which is the sand patties, the area called the Rungsat Special Zone below, about 50 miles south of Saigon, was a mangrove swamp. The only area similar to that I can refer to is the Florida Everglades. It's roughly 60 by 100 miles of mangrove swamp with nothing but mud. And I'll get into that a little bit later on, because that even though it's full of mud, was the easiest operating area, because if you were in the Delta, you had to go into hooches, into buildings, into cities, and clean them out door by door. If you were in the Da Nang area, you were in very heavy jungle, or you were going door to door, room to room. And that, you don't know who is on the other side of the door, whether it's good or bad. Where I operated, which was in the Rungsat, that 6,000 square miles was free fire zone. We didn't have to say, you're the good guy, you're the bad guy. If they were there, they were bad guys, so it made it relatively easy. Okay, the point of my brief today really is, how do you make a SEAL? How long is training? What do they go through? This is only for appreciation, not to say we did it or any of that type of thing, but you will appreciate the length of time and the money that is invested into SEALs. All right. Before you can become a SEAL, you have to get orders to go into training. Training is totally done now and since about 1968, 69 in Coronado, California. There used to be two SEAL training areas. Now it's all combined into San Diego. And they are rebuilding their entire training facility down there as we speak. When a class is formed to go into training, it takes from a month to 2 months to round up enough people who qualify to go into training. How do you do that? You are screened. The first thing a high school, college person who is interested, and it can be males or females, anyone is eligible to apply to get orders for training. They try and find 150 enlisted and 25 officers to start the program. A program starts every 2 months, so there's 6 classes a year. They hope to get out of the 175 that begin training, at the end of the first 6 months, they hope to graduate 25 to 30. 25 to 30 out of 175. So they try and select at the very beginning the most physically talented and mentally capable, ready and psychologically ready to go into training, because it is stressful. And what they do, there are 5 things. If you are John Doe and you are living in the Orange County area and you are interested in trying to become a SEAL, about every month there will be a site named, if you go online, you can find out where it is. San Diego, Long Beach, Bay Area, every major city, they will have a SEAL go in there on a Saturday morning, and you must do 5 things. First, and this is only 3 of them, but pull-ups is the thing that separates the men from the boys or the ladies from the SEALs. You have to do, optimistically, 25 pull-ups. Women have a great deal of difficulty with the upper body strength. They can do all of the other qualifications, but this is the one that catches them, and it catches 99% of the men also. To do 25 pull-ups is very strenuous. Also, second thing, you have a 2-minute wait. After you do your pull-ups, you do push-ups. Optimum is 100 push-ups in 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes, 100 of them. Okay? Then you do sit-ups. You have a 2-minute wait in between. sit-ups. Optimum is 100 in 2 minutes, so you're moving. Then they put you in the pool for a 500-meter swim. In 8 minutes is optimum. You get out of the pool, they give you a 10-minute break now, and you do a 1.5-mile run in under 9 minutes. Those 5 items are the physical portion of it. They also give you a psychological screening test. You are interviewed by a psychologist or psychiatrist, psychologist, and they spend 1 hour per candidate that makes it through this program of the 5 tests. You are screened to make sure you've got the mental acuity and those kinds of things. They give you a, what is it when you're shut up in the dark and small rooms? Claustrophobia. They give you a claustrophobia test because an awful lot of people who are good swimmers can't go underwater because they have claustrophobia. All right. That gets you no more than orders to begin training. As I say, they form a class every other month, 150 enlisted, 25 officers. The enlisted still go to Great Lakes, Illinois, where they get, for Army types, MOS, or for the Navy types, you get a rating of what type of job you will do. If you graduate from SEAL team, that MOS changes from a bosun maid or a cook or whatever to a SEAL operator. Here is the gist of training. This is BUDS, which is called Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. 26 weeks. The first 5 weeks, where did my pointer? The first 5 weeks is phase 1. It is virtually conditioning. Run, swim, all of those types of things, push-ups, pull-ups. You start at 6 in the morning, at breakfast. The one thing that the SEALs do is you eat 4 meals a day when you're operating. 6 a.m. you have breakfast, at noon you have lunch, at 6 p.m. you have dinner, and you're usually doing a night operation, so at midnight they stop and you have soup and sandwiches. Wow. Now I say that because that's very important when you're going through training. If you are in the pool at 11:30 or 11:45 in the morning and you're in the pool, all of a sudden there's a whistle that will blow and everybody's out of the pool and they will either run you to the mess hall or they will sit you down on the edge of the pool and hand you a brown bag because at noon you will eat. So when you're going through training, if you are just about out of it and ready to quit, your buddy, and everything is pretty well done in the buddy system, your buddy won't let you quit. They won't let you ring the bell and say, I quit, because if you do that, then the buddy also has to get reassigned to someone else, and that starts everything all over again. Wow. So, when you're going through training, your buddy is the most important person in the world. When you're on your last push-up or your last sit-up or you're in the middle of a swim or a run and it's time for a meal, everything stops. So, for those people that are just about ready to give it up, your partner will say, we only got 15 minutes until the next chow. So you're not living to graduate, you're not living month to month, week to week, day to day. You're living for your next meal because everything's going to stop for 30 minutes and you're going to have a rest. Wow. Okay. So, there's safety. As you're going through training, any of these phases, safety is of paramount opportunity. You have heard, and there is, unfortunately, a death about every 2-3 years when people are even going through training with instructors standing around the pool. They just had a death here a couple of months ago from a young man who had a heart condition which was not caught. And the medical officer was relieved of duty as a SEAL medical officer. He missed a enlarged heart, had pneumonia. There are oftentimes pneumonia cases caught, but students do not want to tell the instructors that they're really hurting, they have a cold, because you may be kicked out of training or rolled back to the next class. Okay, so the first phase, ground proofing. This is only one portion of the first phase of training. A lot of the Army Special Forces, a lot of the Marines also go through this. Ground proofing is when you're put in the pool, and this is not first day, this is about your third or fourth week of training. You've been getting more comfortable in the water, the instructors harass you a lot. But what ground proofing is to build confidence in anyone who gets in the water. They tie your feet together, they tie your hands behind your back, and they put you in a 12-foot pool. You'll notice there's no shallow end of that pool, it's all deep. And you must do 3 lengths of the pool with your hands and feet tied. Now there's 2 ways you can do that. If you happen to be a floater, and about 25% of everybody, male and female, many more women, it's about 50% of females can float easily, about 25% of males can float easily. You can just float on the top, roll over on your back, and just kind of move your feet, and you move it up and down the pool. But that's not too many. The more muscular they get, the heavier the weight of the body, and you're more likely to sink. So what you're looking at here is somebody drops to the bottom, you push off the bottom and move forward about 3 feet, go up to the surface, get a breath of air, go back down to the bottom, push off 3 feet further, advance, and you can, if you're comfortable and relaxed in the water, you can do that all day. But for an awful lot of people who are in training, that's a big challenge. And you lose some of those. Surf passage, this is a dramatic picture, but this tells you in the first phase again, an awful lot of ocean work. Everything starts in the bay or in the pool before you get to the ocean. So they don't start your day one in the ocean. You start swimming in the pool, then you go to the bay, and then you go to the ocean. When you went in a rubber boat, and you're going to be going on a landing on a beach, you don't know what you're going to be going into, so an awful lot of times during the day, these rocks that you're looking at happen to be some of the most expensive property in the world. This is about 50 yards from the Hotel Del Coronado in San Diego, and the Hotel Del patrons love to watch the seals when they go through this particular evolution. You'll get 15 or 20 of these boats coming in out of the ocean across the rocks, and it is nothing more than practice of the higher the waves, the more the instructors like it, because it's a bigger challenge for the students to get their boats across the rocks. Okay. Second phase is diving. Diving phase, you're starting, let me go back to swimming. Basically, every week that you're in training, you'll have at least 2 swims during the week, whether that be in the pool, the bay, or the ocean. I'll tell you the story. I went through training in 1965, and in 1964 they held the Olympics. One of the best Olympic swimmers that year was a guy by the name of Mike Troy. He went through training 1 class before me, 2 months ahead of me. Mike Troy was a triple gold medal winner in the Olympics in breaststroke and butterfly. Mike Troy went into training, and the first week of training, they put you in the swimming pool. The first 2 swims are nothing more than to get those people comfortable in the water, so you're swimming around the pool any kind of stroke you want. But after about 2 or 3 trials in the pool, they get comfortable, they put swim fins on him. Well, Mike Troy never had a pair of swim fins on him the whole time he's swimming for the Olympics and qualifying. Put swim fins on him, his calves locked up and cramped on him so badly, he had to be pulled out by the instructors, almost drowned. Now, 2 weeks later, after his muscles got used to the fins, he took off and he was way ahead of the class again. But you have to always be looking forward as you're going through SEAL training.
Tom, are you touched on double week a minute?
I will be getting to that. That's the next one. Yes, we get into that.
Sorry.
That's good. Diving phase. Scuba. Probably 90% of SEALs and UDT SEALs use scuba only. They're qualified. You start in the pool, then you advance after a week or two to the bay area where it's still closely monitored by the instructors over the side of the boat. They're watching all the students with their scuba on, and then you advance to the ocean. After you're learning, and what's going on here is after a couple of weeks and you have your scuba tanks on, you have what's a one-day period to make sure everything is good. They do a harassment swim. The instructors, of which there's the instructor with nothing more than a snorkel on, going to the surface, up and back, and they go down and harass the swimmers who are sitting on the bottom or swimming around. They'll take your face mask off. They'll take a fin off. You're supposed to just keep moving. They will take your entire rig off your back, and you just have to keep moving in the pool. Harassment swim builds confidence if you get through that hour of evolution. Next thing, not a lot of people are familiar with this. You don't just on the weekend go out and get one of these rigs. These are called mixed gas closed circuit rigs. When you are going to use these is when you're in a combat situation and you must sneak in. Anytime it's ever been in a scuba gear, every time you exhale, there's a lot of bubbles that go to the surface. Very tough to sneak it up on another ship or go into a pier or something like that with lots of bubbles. They can just track right where you are, drop a hand grenade over the side or something like that. These rigs, Mark 15, Mark 16, are mixed gas. Every time you exhale, you also have where your carbon dioxide is absorbed into your backpack and there are no bubbles. So here you cannot go much below 33 feet in these, but you're down 33 feet underwater, but there's no bubbles. And it's a dangerous rig, but it is the only clandestine one where once you're trained, you can become very comfortable in that also. Submarine escape training.
Tom,
Yes.
real quick. You say it's a dangerous rig when they're learning it. Do they not mess with them when they're first learning that one? Do they take their time with that and go slowly with that? Or is it pretty high intensity when they're first learning that as well?
No. You start all over, and the whole thing is to become familiar with it. And this is towards the end of the second phase of training where they have gotten very comfortable in the water with the other kinds of rigs. So when they put this one on you, there's very little harassment. This is one where it's all operational. Yeah, good question. Okay, submarines. SEALs operate regularly off submarines. Many times it's on the surface, so it's administrative. But sometimes in an operational environment, you are underwater in a submarine and you must lock out from the submarine. What that looks like from the outside is, here's your divers, 2 divers, and they came out of the hatch of the submarine. The hatch of the submarine goes into a space about the size of a medium-sized telephone booth. You can get 2 people in there, but they can't be wearing their scuba tanks. They have to have them between their feet because there's not enough space in that lockout chamber. That is purely an emergency on a submarine. So you go from the submarine, up a ladder, into this escape hatch, size of a phone booth. You climb up in, they hand you your rigs, your scuba tanks. You keep those between your knees. Once the bottom hatch that you've climbed up into, once you climb into it and you're there, they close the hatch below you, They flood that clear up to about chin level, and there's a little bit of air between that and the top, which is just barely, if you're more than 6 feet, your head is hitting the top, so you're scooched down in it. Once the lockout chamber is full of water, then you manually open the outside hatch to the outside ocean, put your rig on, put it out through the door, go out the door yourself, put your rig on, and then you're free to go into the ocean. One of the things that we do is practice free ascent. From the submarine's normal periscope depth down to where this hatch cover is about 60 feet normally. So what you do when you lock out, now these people have scuba tanks on, but when you're in training, one of the evolutions, for one day you get a submarine and you free ascent. You lock out with no tanks on, you duck out of the submarine and go to the surface, 60 feet. Okay, that's no problem. Going up, all you're doing is exhaling. Your lungs are about half the normal size at 60 feet. Every time you go up another 10 feet, you're exhaling. You go up another 10 feet, and your lungs are expanding, so you exhale a little bit more. You're not taking any air in. Obviously, you're underwater with no tanks on. The challenge is, once you're on the surface, the evolution is over. Now you have to get back to the submarine. So it's a free ascent from the surface down to the submarine. 60 feet, free dive, down to the submarine, get in that tank, 2 at a time, into the tank, down into the submarine. Okay, land warfare. And then I'll get in, Bill, then I'll get into the heli. Third phase is land warfare. This is the shoot 'em up, the bangs, and the patrolling. This takes place, and this, even though most of the training is done in Coronado, when you get to the third phase, which is again 9 more weeks, you're out at San Clemente Island. If everybody's familiar with it, it's about 60 miles offshore here. Sister island to San Clemente. The very northern end of the island has a runway on it, which the Navy and other services use for touch and goes. But at the very point of this area out here, there is a SEAL base, just a couple of buildings where they take the students out. And out here is where they have built artificial buildings for patrolling. And you learn weapons, you learn patrolling. Urban fighting is one of the things that throughout your training as a SEAL, you learn to do a great deal. The most dangerous thing that a SEAL ever has to do is to go through a door. Sounds pretty easy, but you don't know what's on the other side of that door. And when you are, I don't care whether it was in Vietnam and you were in a hooch, or whether you are in Fallujah and you're going into a 3-story building, when you go into a building, you don't know what's in that building. Good guys, bad guys, explosives, or whatever. And one of the big things is, how do you enter a door? Most of the fatalities and the major injuries that happen to SEALs are when they are going into an urban environment and you're in close quarter combat drills, which is what this is right here. You learn how to go in very quickly. You evaluate what's on the other side of the door, good guys, bad guys, shoot or don't shoot. Some of the weapons that are used. Everything from Smith & Wesson pistols, which have nice scopes on them for lasers, etc. The Colt weapons, sniper rifles, machine guns, and the day-to-day operations are the M16 with a grenade launcher underneath it. What that is an over and under. The weapon is on top, and the grenade launcher is right underneath it, so you have both grenade capabilities as well as a rifle. Now, if you look at the size of that weapon right there, it's about 30 inches long. Well, if you're in an urban environment, you're trying to wheel that around going through doors, it's pretty heavy. So most of the time, let's get to the next picture here. There we go. Close combat battle. This is what you use in an urban environment. You'll see that that is a much shorter weapon. It also has a stock that will compress, so it will shorten the weapon even further, so it can be only about 16, 18 inches long for in close combat. Okay, parachute school. Let me, before I go into this, answer some of Bill's questions about Hell Week. Hell Week is the 5th week. After you go through first phase, 5 weeks, you go into Hell Week. Hell Week is the second most difficult thing that happens when you're going through SEAL training. When I mentioned before, you start with 175 students starting at the beginning of training. That 150 will be reduced to somewhere around 35 to 45 by the end of the first 6 weeks. First 5 weeks, everything is based on cold water. When you have an evolution, whether it's a run, whether it's a swim, everything is done competitively and it's timed. And the penalty is cold water. They got the ocean right there. They can't put hands on you, they don't injure you, they're not going to kill you, but they still have to emphasize you must do better every evolution. One of the last slides you'll see here today is your easiest day was yesterday. Okay? And that's what happens in training. A couple of scenarios. Every Friday there is a 4-mile run. And before you get to Hell Week, the 5th week, you have started with a 2-mile run on your first day of training, up to by the end of the 5th week, you have a 16-mile run. The 16-mile run is not a fast run. It's a slow, steady pace so that everybody has a maximum opportunity to finish it. But every Friday up until that time, what happens is if this is a class, the fastest runner will start your 4-mile run on Friday. Every 10 seconds after that, the next fastest person will leave the starting line. 2 things must happen for you to have a comfortable week. 1, you must exceed or do better than your time from last Friday. 1 second, that's all you need, 1 second, but you have to be better than last week. The other thing is, every 10 seconds behind you is another student. If that student passes you, no good. Okay. What happens? The penalty is, for the next evolution, usually an ocean swim, you lose your wetsuit. Oh, no. Swimming in the ocean, as long as you keep moving, you can generate enough body energy to stay relatively warm. But relative is a term used by the instructors. It's all relative. Okay, so that's cold water gets rid of as many students as anything except for Hell Week. You probably lose 40% of your students through cold water. I don't care whether you're a swimmer, water polo, casual swimmer, good swimmer, everybody swims in the pool, and unless you're a surfer, you're not used to ocean temperatures, and virtually all surfers wear some form of wetsuit. When you don't have a wetsuit, it gets cold in a hurry. Okay. Same thing, once a week, there is an obstacle course. Okay? In Hell Week, they don't use the obstacle course. It's too dangerous. Somebody falls off of an obstacle or something like that. But during the regular week leading up to Hell Week, you must do better than your trial the week before on Hell Week, and you must not let the person who started 10 seconds behind you pass you, or you lose your wetsuit. So everything is timed. All right.
Tom, is that one individual? Just that person loses their wetsuit? It's not like it's punishing?
Just the person who gets passed or doesn't do their
Okay,
time.
not the whole.
No, not the whole.
Okay.
a lot of times, what will usually happen, if I'm giving a lecture and we're in a classroom and there's lectures in all three phases of these, somebody falls asleep, somebody doesn't answer a question or do something that the instructor's like, one of the things that the instructors can have to get your attention is go out and sit in the surf zone for an hour. Now you're in a Greens uniform or you're in swimsuits or whatever, but to go out and just sit in the surf zone and have the surf washing back and forth over you, and you have a line of bodies down in the surf zone, locked elbow to elbow, and the surf's coming in and washing you back and forth and back and forth. You're sitting there for an hour. You don't get up and walk out of that. You kind of crawl up because your body is so cold and so stiff that you crawl out of the water and you roll around in that warm sand, because even in December and January, the sand will be warmer than the cold water, so you roll around and get in the sand. Okay. All to get your attention all the time in training. Okay. Parachute school. Colonel, here's your pictures. You all like this. Two kinds of parachute training. One is static line. If you see this person going out, there's a line. Parachute's on his back, and this line is attached to the helicopter, or in the other case, a C-130. When you jump out of the airplane, that lanyard will pull the chute out of your backpack and deploy the chute. You don't have to do anything but jump out and hang on. Start counting. And pray that you land well. Okay. When you're in training, and this only happened about 10, 12 years ago, all Navy SEALs UDT used to go to Army Jump School in Fort Benning, Georgia. I went through Fort Benning, Georgia. Now, the Navy has accepted the full curriculum from the Army's Jump School, implemented it into SEAL training in Coronado, and the SEALs teach their own students the training. Now, if you go to Fort Benning, Georgia, that's a 3-week school. Here, it's a 10-day school. Okay? Now, the other thing that happens is after you get your 10 static line jumps, you are qualified as a Navy jumper. Then you will immediately begin free fall. Free fall. Okay, free fall. And free fall is not done without the instructor. As you'll notice here, here's the jumper, and the guy with the black stripes on his pants is the instructor. They go out with every student on the first 2 jumps, so that if the student locks up and you're free falling, they'll go straight into the ground. So the instructor is there, and when it's time for the student to open his chute, he pulls a ripcord off his chest, and the chute on his back will deploy. If he doesn't do that, the instructor's right there and will yank it from him, and he's out of the program. Question?
Now, don't they have a barometric release automatically in case they pass out or something?
Not in training.
Pardon me?
Not in training.
Oh.
No. If you are at higher altitude, you will have automatic deployments on your chutes, but these are training chutes. Yes, so they don't do these for the first couple of training jumps. So, now, you need 10 more jumps before you're qualified as free fall. Free fall can go as high as, and there have been SEALs go out at 40,000 feet. That's with oxygen on, you're falling for 6 or 7 minutes before you open it up. Those kinds of jumps have your automatic deployment, altimeter, and everything on them. Okay?
Tom, you said, or I should say Captain,
That's okay.
you said if they fail that chute jump, they're out of the program, they don't get a second.
One and done on jumping. Yes.
One and done.
Yep. With halo and hey-ho. High altitude, low opening. High altitude, high opening. The chutes, which I'll show you in a minute, Okay, this is the group jump, which is your graduation. When you are free fall qualified, your last jump, the whole class, the whole helicopter, there may be 6 or 8 at a time, will go out as a group just to raise hell. That's our last jump. You go out, and the instructors on the ground are tracking you with binoculars, and everyone has a colored smoke so that they can track you, because you're going out at about 12,000 feet, which is only about a minute to a minute and 20-second fall before you open it up. So this is kind of a grab-ass last time jump. No, I don't want to go there yet. I want to go back to Hell Week. Hell Week is the second time when you lose a lot of students. This is the 5th week of training. First 5 weeks have been all physical. The 6th week is called Hell Week. It starts on Sunday night at 10 p.m. and it finishes the following Saturday at noon. Now, that's a week. And you're doing primarily physical conditioning, although they sneak in a few classes earlier in the week, because in that week, you start Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. You will get a total of between 4 and 6 hours of sleep for the week. For the week. Okay? Now, it doesn't mean that students can sneak a half hour here and a half hour there, because on a lot of evolutions, you will have a run up the beach and people, the whole boat crew, will sneak off into sand dunes, grab half hour sleep, and they come in later on in the group competition and may get some harassment but get a little bit of sleep. The other thing is, a night evolution will be rowing your rubber boat. You remember the black rubber boat you saw in there? From one end of the San Diego Bay to the other, in the bay. Many times, students will be rowing and fall asleep and fall right off the side. So, that get wet and you get back in, now you're all wet and cold. But the other thing there is, if the officer in the boat is smart, there's no timing on this, you just have to start it and finish it, and it might be a 3-hour paddle from one end of the bay to the other. Well, you put 2 guys in the bottom of the boat, catch an hour's worth of sleep, rotate 2 others, because there's seven paddlers in the boat, so everybody gets another hour of sleep. Officially, though, during the week, you get between 4 and 6. Why the difference? Air temperature. Winter classes, which will start, I started on January 2nd. Hell Week was mid-February. Even in San Diego, that's cold, and it's 60-degree water temperature and 60 to 65 air temperature. That can really drain it, and if it's a particularly cold week during Hell Week, those students they don't even realize it, but they're getting an extra hour or 2 of sleep during that week. If it's summer class and everything is fairly warm, there's not as much energy used up for a lot of these evolutions. You don't lose the body heat, and you may get 3 or 4 hours sleep for the week instead of that. Okay. One of the evolutions that happens during Hell Week usually happens on Thursday night. On Thursday night, and you're down probably by the end of Hell Week to probably 35 to 40 students out of that 175 that started. And the sleep deprivation is one of the things that get you, the cold water is the other. So Thursday night, you've been up since Sunday night with a couple of hours sleep, and sneaky bastard, excuse me, that the instructors are, and I had 2 years as an instructor in the SEAL program. You basically have all the students go in, strip their racks of the blanket and their pillow. You go out on the green soccer field, lay your blanket down, put your pillow down. The instructors have soft music going on. They tell you to lay down, but do not fall asleep. Okay? The soccer field is about 40 yards from the San Diego Bay. Okay, cold water is a solution for everything. As these kids are falling asleep, instructors will get them up, go hit the bay, and you go out and sit there in the bay until you're called back out of it. Usually, out of a class of the 35 that are 40 that are still staying awake and haven't been caught napping by the instructors, this will go on for an hour or so, or until everybody ends up getting caught and everybody's down in the bay. So once everybody's in the bay, then they pull you out, harass you a little bit, and then you're back into the regular Hell Week routine. But that's just some of the things they do. And when they do put you in bed, they will, for let's say Wednesday night or Friday night, they'll put you in bed just about the time you're in bed, and you've been in bed for an hour, let's say they're going to give you 1 hour. They'll go in with trash cans and anything that's loud, some M80 firecrackers, just knock you out of bed and get you all disoriented. You got to be out in front in 2 minutes, dressed and ready for the next evolution. So it's to play with your mind, and sleep deprivation gets a lot of people. That's one of the main things that happens down at Guantanamo. They can't put them in the ocean, they may swim away. But in Guantanamo, one of the primary things that they use, can't use waterboarding anymore, so they say. And the other thing is sleep deprivation. So loud noises, all kinds of things to keep you awake so you can't sleep, or go in and wake you up every 20 minutes. That will get to a lot of people very quickly. Okay. Let's see if we can get this going here. We'll be going through jump school. Okay. SQT, SEAL Qualification Training. At the end of the first phase, that's about a 6-month school. By the time you get into training, you're through basic underwater demolition SEAL training. You do not get your SEAL device anymore. Used to be, when I went through training in the 60s, at the end of your 6 months, you become a SEAL, you're assigned to a SEAL team. Now, you only move from BUDS into SQT. This is another additional anywhere from a year to a year and a half of training to get your SEAL device. Now the SEALs are up to almost 2 years of training invested in the students that they have. Once you do get into SQT though, the harassment portion of this, the hit the bay and all that kind of, that's done. Once you get out of BUDS, this is all professional training now. Okay. This is where you learn as a group, and SEALs usually operate, and I should stop right here and digress a little bit into, when I was going through training, a platoon in the SEALs was usually 14 or 15 people, 2 7-man squads, and if you needed a specialist of some kind. So 14 or 15, 2 7-man teams, fire teams. Officer, point man, radio man, intel radio man, heavy operator, heavy machine gun operator, and a drag. Somebody, whoever's pulling up the rear. Okay. Anymore, and you get this in SQT, anymore, instead of 7-man fire teams, we're up to almost 10. They have taken other people off the top from other platoons, broken those up, so instead of a platoon of 7, now you have a platoon of 10. One of the things, and this has been just in the last 10 to 12 years, there is a dog handler. Every platoon has a dog handler now. The dog will have, in most cases, if it's in an urban environment, the dog will have a camera on its head, he will have earphones in its ears, and the handler will be outside the building and talking to the dog through the headset. What do we got here? 5 minutes, okay. So, the dog handler will have the capability to tell the dog which building to go into And don't tell me what the instructors are. I mean, Colonel, you may be able to tell us more about how to handle the dogs. But the dog handlers will be looking through the dog's camera, which is on his head, into his laptop in front of him, and he will be directing the dog to go into the building and turn right, or go up the steps, or turn left, or come back out. The dog is trained to go through the entire building, all the rooms, because the dogs, they have pretty well proven, are less likely to get shot than a human coming through the door. So the dog basically, intel-wise, scouts the entire building through the camera on his head and taking directions from the handler outside. So now the SEAL platoon outside behind the dog handler will have somewhat of a better idea of what's behind the building. Second specialist on the new SEAL platoons is a drone handler. Drones, they can park a drone, just set them 100 feet, 200 feet above a building for hours and see who's going in and going out. If you know how many people in the building, you have a much better idea of what you're going to face when you go through that door. Most dangerous point. Okay.
Are the specialist SEALs or no? Are the specialists also SEALs?
Yes, they are sent to school. Once you're through training, yes. Get the button there. This is, patrolling tactics, equipment, pack out. Here's the one. Dogs are not left out at all. The dogs and the dog handlers, there's 4 SEALs. You can't quite see the 4 SEAL, but there's 4 SEALs with a dog hanging from their waist or on their leg. The dog is in a harness. They go out, they rappel down to the ground with the dog, so the dog goes everywhere. Get it again. I think I got one more with the dog. Now that looks like it's way up in the air. That's probably only 6 or 8 feet from the water. That looks like it might be high. That's not a parachute jump. That's just going out of the back of a helicopter with the dog. Whoop, yeah, going out with the dog. The dog goes every place the handler goes. So, okay, let's go. Here we go. Oh, we went 2 there. Go back 1. SEALs. Now those are special suits. They're heated, but until you go in the water and you spend some time in the water in one of those heated suits under the ice, you don't know what cold water is. So anyway, and that's when you get your SEAL device. It's about 2 years start to finish now, where it used to be 6 months. I only mentioned 2 of the 3 other people who are assigned to a platoon. The third one is a linguist. If you're going into any of the countries, they will have a linguist, either a SEAL or a non-SEAL language expert, depending on where you're going. So with that, thank you very much. Yeah, that's right. That's to keep you awake.
So you were like it better than cold water.
The second game, after the Q&A, we'd like to go into the video for...
You're assigned to one of the 8 SEAL teams. No one gets into SEAL Team 6, which is a highly classified one, until you've spent a year or 2 with one of the SEAL teams. And then SEAL Team 6 may find you and ask you, or you can volunteer to go into SEAL Team 6. But firstly, 100% of everyone goes into one of the 8 SEAL teams. You are then assigned to one of the platoons, and depending on where that SEAL team is assigned, whether it's in a cold water environment like Adak, Alaska, or in, Scandinavian countries or something like that, you do much more training with your platoon in cold weather ops. If you're going to jungle, they will send you to Panama, the Panama Jungle Warfare School for the Army. many of the SEALs, I went through that 3-week program, great program, down there in Panama. So once you get into the platoon will know where they're going in the next 6 months to 2 years, and that platoon will operate. The first thing you do learn is close quarter drill, going through doors. How do you go into a building, clean out a building, and you spend more time doing that than anything else, because that's where your potential for the highest risk is as a SEAL.
All right, we got another question back here.
Yeah, I was a CT, a crypto technician. I wasn't a language guy, I was an electronics guy. So if you had a CT assigned with you who was not a SEAL, what did you do about the fact that maybe his physical capabilities weren't up to the capabilities of the other guys on the squad?
Yeah, good question. This is one of the areas where you need a linguist or a specialist, whether it be a technician or you have some kind of special radio operator or something that has to be assigned. SEALs move at the pace of the slowest person in the team. I mean, you're not going to leave anybody behind, so if your specialist or your translator is not a SEAL and they can only go so fast, that's where the platoon goes. They only go that fast. And if you're going through obstacles, the SEALs are obviously trained to help anybody through, because the linguist, you can't do an operation if you're going into a foreign country if you can't talk to the people, if that's part of your mission. So you have to have your linguist with you, or your technician, or your radio specialist.
Right here, Tom.
Tom, could you touch on the support personnel that support the SEALs in terms of the boat crews and all the support personnel and the number of support personnel that has to support the SEAL team?
In most every SEAL team, there will be about 120 SEALs. Let's say SEAL Team 1. I was in SEAL Team 1 in 1965. You have about 120 SEALs broken up into 6 to 7 platoons, and you will have, in addition to those 120 SEALs, you will have 180 support people. Who's packing the parachutes? Who is repairing the weapons? SEALs are capable of doing the repair, but primarily they're on to the next evolution. They turn in their equipment, and it's worked on by specialists, gunner's mates, or whoever to repair any of the weapons, change out parts. Radios go down faster than anything else other than dirty weapons. So, you know, if you're going to have a operation fail, it's usually because weapons aren't working properly or your communications aren't working properly, and those are the things that can limit your operational status.
You're right here, Tom.
Captain Weaver, is the device you were talking about, is that known as the Trident pin, or is that something different?
I got the Trident pin, what was that?
The butt badge.
Or is it something different? You mean the Trident pin when you say device?
The Budweiser badge, you still have my clip in there? Oh, don't worry about it. Okay. The Budweiser badge and the Trident are one and the same. It is, it gets covered up under here, but that's basically, it looks like the Budweiser commercial is really what it was. That's why they call it the Budweiser. But it's a sealed device, and you guys are okay.
Okay, we got one back here for you, Tom.
The weapon that had the grenade launcher on it, was that an M16?
M16, 16A1.
What was the weight of the combined unit?
Probably about 9 pounds.
That's probably pretty close. Between 8 and 11, whether it's loaded or unloaded, and how many, whether you got a short clip of cartridges or whether you got a big bell, it can change by a couple of pounds. But you know, your weapons, SEALs in their arsenal have about 40 different weapons. Now, any one individual usually will never carry more than 2, maybe 3. Usually 2, a sidearm and your longer range weapon. The one where there's usually only one is your sniper. A sniper rifle, which is anywhere from 4 to 6 feet long, will run anywhere from 30 to 35 pounds with no ammo. So that's usually a duel. You got a spotter who carries his own scope as well as X number 100 rounds, or not 100 rounds, but anywhere from a box or so of ammunition. I may say that most every platoon, one of the normal riflemen will become a sniper. A sniper goes to school, and that's about a 5-month school. It's an Army school. The SEALs are taking it over, but they haven't done yet. But the whole purpose of being a sniper is patience. You may go in and sit in a field or sit on a rooftop for 3 or 4 days before you are called back, or you get one shot. 3 or 4 days in waiting. Okay? That means you don't move at all. You crap in a bag and you set it beside you. You carry all that back out with you so that you're not recognized. You take all your extra food, empty containers, whatever, you pack it up, you carry that all back out with you. So a sniper, overwatch, whatever they want to call it, if there's a platoon going down a street, that sniper will have as high an advantage as he can possibly find, either in a tree, on a building, church steeple, whatever it is, and his job is to spot, and he has a mic. Everybody in the SEAL team has those throat mics with the earring phone. When I was going through, we didn't have those, but they do now. So they're all talking back, well, they're not supposed to be talking, but there should only be one person on line at a time. So, but sniper, yeah, well, one question. Just before I retired in 1994, I was down in Panama City. They had a number of senior officers from all of the services, and they could go on a fishing trip, they could play golf, or they could fire a sniper rifle. I had never fired a sniper rifle. Sniper rifle is not in the shooting, it's in the patience waiting to take the correct shot. I had a professional spotter with me. My target was 1.5 miles away. It was a 55-gallon drum. And I put 9 out of 10 into the drum, and I hadn't fired a weapon for 20 years. It's not the firing. If you can sight it in, and you have a good spotter to tell you where the wind is, and et cetera, you can fire it. Now that's, again, not firing at a human being, that's firing at a big old metal drum.
So quick question. I know that the academies that people can say they want to go, to SEAL, and they start training them for 4 years, and you said you have a certain number of officers and a certain number of enlisted. Is there a percentage of drop? Is it the same between enlisted and officers, or the ones that get prepared work that going through the academy, like the 4 years of pre-training, do they have a higher retention rate in making it through, or a lower retention rate compared to the ones that have not gone through the previous training?
You got it exactly right. There's usually 25 spots for officers, and about 90% of them will make it through training. They have 4 years training, they know the leadership, they've been coached for 4 years on what to put up with in the academy. If you commit to trying to go into the SEAL program, they will harass you a little bit more every Saturday and Sunday type thing. So officers do have a chance, and again, if you're not familiar with the way the academy works, whether you're in the Air Force Academy, whether you're in the West Point, you can commit to requesting orders for SEAL team, any of the services. The way it works is your academic study at those academies, whoever is the very first person in the class academically has the first selection off the board of where you want to go. If you're number one, you get the first choice. If it's SEAL training, if it's a pilot, it's a submarine service, it's whatever it is, you get first choice. Second choice on down through. SEAL team in 1965 might have had one person out of the Naval Academy per class. Maybe. 1 out of 3 or 4. Today, right now, probably 13 to 15 out of the first 25 of the Naval Academy request SEAL team training. The other half are pilots. And then it goes down from there.
All right, I'm gonna have to make an executive decision here. I know there are several other people that have questions, but I'm gonna have to ask you to wait and speak with Tom at the end of our presentation. I know we have a video that we want to show at this time, so I apologize that I can't keep the forum of questions open right now.